So it looks like we're up and rolling. It's all right if I read the meeting intro here?
Yep, I think we're all here, so let's get going.
Okay. The format of this meeting consists of board members, applicants, and city staff attending a live online Zoom meeting and the public viewing the meeting on the city's YouTube channel. For applicants, please only speak when the chair indicates it's time to do so. In addition, as usual, prior to addressing the board, please state your name, address, and affirm that you will. For viewers on YouTube, you have the ability to type in comments. If you enter in a comment on YouTube, please first indicate your name and address. Comments can be entered at any time, but will be relayed to the board when the chair indicates that it's time to do so. Finally, please be aware there's an approximate 15-second delay between the Zoom meeting and the live stream on YouTube. That's all I have, and I'll turn over to Stuart to start the meeting.
Thank you, Andrew. This is the regularly scheduled December meeting of the Worcester Board of Building and Zoning Appeals. This is a volunteer board of Worcester citizens established to hear requests for variances, appeals, and similar applications as specified in the City of Worcester Planning and Zoning Code. Board members present this evening are Greg McIlvaine, Ken Suchan, Ben Gunn, Mark Reynolds, Brad Gowans, and Doug McMillan. Stuart, and I'm chairman of this board. Because these hearings are a matter of legal record, the public portion of the meeting is recorded. Therefore, as Andrew just indicated, we ask that if and when you speak, speak loudly and clearly. We also ask that prior to speaking, each speaker gives his or her name, address, and affirmation to tell the truth. Following the meeting, the appellant for each application will receive notification of the board's decision. The applications to be considered tonight are applications BZA 20-29 and BZA 20-30. Our first order of business is roll call. Greg?
Here.
Ken?
Here.
Ben?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Brad?
Here.
Doug?
Here.
And I too am here. Our next order of business is approval of the November 5th, 2020 meeting minutes. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
I'll make a second.
Second by Greg McIlvaine. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, the minutes are approved. Our first application for tonight is BZA 20-29. Doug Druschel requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1125.03B5 to allow a parking lot within the required setbacks for a property located at the southeast corner of University Street and Spink Street in a community facility zoning district. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Doug Druschel, 225 North Market Street, Worcester. I affirm to tell the truth. I'm here as counsel for the college and representing the college in this matter. Also available this evening, and you'll see on your screen, is Bo Mastrine, who's the director of facilities and at the college, who's the one primarily in charge of this project at the college, who's happy to answer any questions that you might have that could be directed to him. This has already been through Planning Commission approval. It's the parking lot is a conditional use in this zoning district, and the Planning Commission has approved that. It has all other approvals, but as is often the case, the Planning Commission approval for what we want here tonight was conditioned upon getting the variance in question from the BZA. You have in your materials examples that Andrew provided to you where variances were granted in similar situations. So there's quite a bit of precedent for this. I would say none of those are exactly the same, but there were a couple of them that were pretty darn similar, I thought, to this situation. You probably all know the area. If you've ever attended events at the College of Worcester, you may have driven by this many times. If you attended events there recently, you may have parked in this area because for a year or two, it's been gravel parking, and that was approved some time ago. And the plan here is simply to improve it and make it nicer and put in a paved parking lot with appropriate signage and painting of lines on the surface, and stormwater retention, which is more or less already in place, which would be probably spruced up a little bit during the construction process. So the sole issue here is to request getting the maximum number of parking spaces possible. Quite frankly, the college is in desperate need of parking. And one of the other things that's going on more or less at the same time, you may have seen some publicity on this recently, is a renovation of Lowry Center. And part of that renovation will move the front part of Lowry Center out closer to Bell Avenue and thus lose a handful of parking spaces that are currently there in the front of Lowry Center. So that construction project, which is quite a substantial in the millions of dollars, it's funded by donations already, will lose a couple parking spaces. So that makes this need all the more urgent. If you've ever attended a basketball game at the college, you probably have seen people parking all over the grass and other places where they probably really shouldn't park, but there's nowhere else to park a lot of days, just normal day to day, but especially if the college has an event. So with that as background, just real quickly, I won't bore you with reading the entirety of the presentation that I put in writing, but just real quickly going through the applicable factors. First, whether special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land and structure are not generally applicable. That is quite clearly the case here because the general places where the college would put parking are not butting up against other areas like this, and thus they wouldn't have this issue. So it is unique to this land. B, whether the property would yield a reasonable return. That depends, I guess, on how you look at it. I mean, the rest of the property can still be used for parking if we don't get this variance, but the area where we want this would be useless if this was not approved. C, whether the variance is substantial and the minimum necessary. It's a very modest variance. They're still not filling the whole area with parking because of the necessary islands that are put in there for landscaping and the like. And probably the biggest thing that you see there on what Andrew's sharing on the screen is the stormwater detention area. So it's still not going to be as many parking areas as probably would have been put in 50 years ago, where in the old days you just paved the whole thing and put in stripes. But nowadays you still have to have the landscaping, the islands, and the stormwater detention. So all that's there in any event. Number D, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be altered. It clearly wouldn't be altered at all. It's going to be a parking lot one way or another. E, whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of government services. The answer there is that no, it has zero impact on other services. F, whether special conditions exist as a result of actions of the owner, not including purchase or acquisition of the property. The answer to that is no. The college didn't do anything to create this problem other than acquiring the property. G, whether the predicament can be feasibly obviated through some other method. I don't know of any other way on this site to solve the problem other than allowing this to allow us to have more parking spaces. H, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done. That's why we have a board of citizens to make that judgment call. It would seem to me that the spirit behind the zoning code would still be met with this variance. I, whether the granting of the variance will confer on the applicant any special privilege that's denied to other lands or structures in the same district. Most of the rest of this district, in this area anyway, is the college itself. It's the lion's share of the CF zone around here. There are other CF zones in town, but the college is the largest share. And this doesn't apply other areas. It only applies around the edge in this kind of an area. And most of the places where the college is adjacent to something else, it's not a parking area, so that wouldn't really apply anywhere else. And then finally, J, whether a literal interpretation of the provision of the code would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this code. That's pretty much the same thing I was just saying. For this CF area, it's pretty much the college is it. It's the 600-pound gorilla of CF in that area. There are other CF areas that would have similar needs for parking, some of them, and some of them would not. I mean, for example, some of the city parks are government owned, so it's not quite analogous, but they don't need the same kind of parking situation that the college would need. So we think that all in all, the criteria there are met. Unless you have other questions of me, that's all I have in the way of a presentation. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. If you have technical, construction, and design types of questions, those would be best addressed to Mr. Mastering, who I'm sure would be happy to answer and provide any other input. Thank you.
Questions from members of the board?
Are the adjacent properties all College of Worcester property?
Not all. If you go every direction but south, they are owned by the college. There are a couple to the south that are not owned by the college.
Okay.
Across the street on Spink is owned by the college, but some immediately to the south are not owned by the college.
Okay. And I see in this drawing, there's looks like trees. You plan on putting trees along the borders. Is that what I see?
I'll defer to Mr. Mastering on that.
Along Spink Street, it looks like there are a couple, 5 trees or so.
Bo, can you answer that?
Sure. Do I have permission to speak, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you do.
Good evening. My name's Bo Mastering, 580 East Wayne Avenue, and I'm with the College of Worcester, and I affirm to tell the truth.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So the trees that are represented on the plan that is on your screen is actually their existing street trees that are there now. What you're not seeing is the full landscape plan for this project, which abides by all of the city's zoning requirements in terms of internal and external landscaping around a parking lot. So it also meets light requirements, also submitted to the Planning Commission a month ago.
So there would be some screening then. Is that an alleyway between the parking lot and the non-college property?
It is a city, it is a city-owned alley that runs from Spink Street over to Gashi. And we will have it screened. So the area that's there around the detention basin and the end of the aisleway there to the southwest would all be screened with evergreen plants and trees to help shield. And like Mr. Druschel said, that is the neighborhood. That's a property that we do not own, and that would be the property we would be screening.
Okay. And then the lighting would be the down lighting that's generally appropriate in situations like this. So you're not having any bleed off.
Yes, that is correct. And if so the lighting plan, which is not presented either, but it was also, that was presented to the Planning Commission. There are there's 2 light poles that are, oh, there, Andrew's got it.
Thank you, Andrew.
So there are, in the center island where the two representation of trees are, where the cursor is, there is a light pole there that actually has a three-way fixture on it. And then the island directly to the east of that will have a single head, I believe, or maybe even a double head LED light fixture on there as well. So, and it meets all of the light splash requirements. We've done the light study, and it nearly goes to 0 as it approaches the property perimeter.
And I just wanted to add, you're seeing the landscaping plan from the Planning Commission's review. So the larger ones in the southwest will need to continue all the way across the south property line. That was one of their conditions for approval. So there'll be actually more landscaping than shown on the plan.
Yeah, and that has been, I believe that's been all resubmitted. So.
How many,
Go ahead, Mark.
if you were to follow the required setbacks, how many parking spots would you lose?
It's my understanding right now that we are meeting the setbacks, I believe. It was my understanding.
No, the variance is for the parking setbacks on all sides of the parking.
Gotcha. So, it could be very easily, here again, I apologize, but I'm not, is the setback 20 feet and we're asking for 10? Can you help me with that, Andrew?
Yeah, and I've got that here. On the north, it's along the street. It's a 25-foot setback. And we're proposing 10, so we would be losing 15 feet there.
So in theory, you would lose that entire north bank of parking.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the south, the code says 20 feet. We're asking for 15 feet, so you wouldn't lose too many on the south.
Yeah.
On the east, we're within inches of the code anyway. But on the west, you would also 25 feet, and you would lose pretty much the whole row there, column, maybe you want to call it, on the left.
So you'd lose
side.
25% probably.
So,
Yeah.
there's roughly 62 spaces in this parking lot, and if you lose that north and majority of that west side, and a few coming up from the south,
You could lose a
it'd
third.
be close to 50%.
Yeah, looks like about 30 some spaces would be lost.
And it's interesting that the largest setback requirements under the code are against streets, which is curious, but that's what the code says.
And so,
And on the opposite side of both of those streets is owned by the college.
right. So I would like to add one little piece. We are going to be losing some parking because of the Lowry Center project. And with these variances, we're going to be able to not only replace what we're losing, but we're going to actually be able to add a few spots as well, which will help the impact of keeping college vehicles off city streets, which I know has been a long history of an issue along, even though you're allowed to park along the curbs, it just seems like there's times where it seems like most of the cars are all College of Worcester, either staff through events or whatever it may be. So, we're trying to do our part here in making a loss of parking and to increase it to help subsidize what we're losing with our project.
For either of the two of you, has there been any contact with the property owners that are not the college?
I don't remember the gentleman's name to the south of us, but he was in the meeting with the Planning Commission, and he had some concerns in regards to stormwater runoff in screening, and there was also some just generalized, as one could imagine, living next to a college campus of student activity. And in that meeting, our president, Sarah Bolton, was in that meeting, and she assured him that she was going to address some issues that were happening on campus, and we'll just kind of have to kind of monitor that as it moves forward. But we've kind of been watching. The city of Worcester, when this was put in as a temporary lot a couple years ago, we abided by the stormwater management plan that the city has, and it's our opinion that the water issues are more so self-inflicted with the lay of the land in terms of the alleys that are there. And we feel that the improvement of this parking lot with curbs is going to not only help the aesthetics of the parking lot, but it's also going to greatly help the water retention of it as well, because we'll be able to direct the water exactly where it needs to go.
Okay, that makes good sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none. Andrew, let's go ahead and open the public hearing and make it available to you two if there are any comments.
Okay, I don't have any comments yet, but I'll indicate that the public hearing is open. It doesn't look like we're getting any comments for this application.
All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, any further questions from members of the board or comments from the applicant? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion from the board, please.
I'll make a motion to approve this variance as presented.
Okay,
I'll
thank you,
second.
Brad. I'm sorry, who seconded?
Mark?
Thank you, Mark. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 20-29. Brad?
Yes, I feel that the applicants have stated their need, why this variance request is necessary and important for them. So for me, on that checklist that we have to review this variance request, if we look at letter C, I do believe that what is being asked is the minimum necessary. To not grant this, as it has been demonstrated, would mean significant loss to the parking spaces. So for me, I feel that's enough for me to vote yes in favor of this variance.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Mark?
I'm also going to vote yes. I would even argue, as someone that drives by this parking lot, if not daily, weekly, that even the temporary lot was an improvement on what was there prior. So I think that the continued improvements will be welcome and make the area a little bit nicer. And I'll agree with Brad that it's kind of the minimum necessary, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the college to sink a bunch of money into it and lose half the spots. And I think that there's always a need for more parking at the college. So that's why I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Greg McElvain?
I'll vote yes also, based on the improvements being made on the property and the definite need for additional parking at the college.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm voting yes on the basis of what my colleagues have already said. Plus, I think that the open space of the storm detention area, which is grass, will somewhat mitigate the fact that the surrounding landscaping is a little bit less. And so I think there's as much grass there as we're going to be, not getting around the outside. So I think overall there's the right amount of landscaping there.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Ben?
I will vote yes as well. I was looking at letter D on our checklist. It's already a parking lot. I mean, you're making improvements to it. You're adding lights. It's going to be safer for the students, for the surrounding community as well, to see what's going on. It just makes sense. So, yes.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Doug?
I'm going to have to agree with my associates and say yes.
Thank you, Doug. And I too will vote yes. I think the other argument in favor of this is that the neighbors concerned the south have been addressed with the additional screening, the improved detention and the water control. So I think the college is really making an effort to be a good neighbor. And I also think that providing additional parking with the Lowry project going on helps get cars off the street. And that's been an age-old contention between the neighborhood and the college. So I think this really does operate to everybody's benefit. So your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have 30. This is Jason Crawford requesting a use variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1109.02 to allow an indoor manufacturing and production use in the central business zoning district. Speak on behalf of the application.
Yes, Jason Crawford. My address is 726 Niles Street, Maslin, Ohio, and I affirm it's to tell the truth.
All right, I think we had a little bit of a freeze there. Is there someone speaking on behalf of this application?
Yes, my name is Jason Crawford. My address is 726 Niles Street, Maslin, and I do affirm to tell the truth.
Great, thank you very much. Please proceed. Sorry about the technical glitch.
That's okay. My name is Jason Crawford. I own Liberty Tactical Equipment, Liberty Screen Embroidery. We originally started as a police and fire uniform store. My background is I'm retired from the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and had opened a uniform store to fill that need for departments in the area. We have grown our business. Initially, my business started as a home business. We were doing screen printing and embroidery from the home. The embroidery part has always complemented the uniform aspect for the different departments that need their, insignia and ranks and names on their uniforms. We have kind of gone back to our screen printing roots and would like to operate our business in the Old Lyric Theater. We would plan to use the southeast corner there. I'm sorry, southwest corner there where it says 22 by 41 showroom to showcase local themed t-shirts and different printed and embroidered products to the public, utilizing the foot traffic of the area to do that. We also sell and service embroidery machines, and we would use the old ticket lobby of the theater to do that. Our screen printing and actual embroidery would be limited to the what we call Theater 1, which would be the top left of the screen there. That room is big enough to accommodate what we need to do, and it's also soundproof because it was a theater. We would also have retail space for police and fire. We'd like to keep that separate because we have a lot of issues now with people walking in off the street trying to purchase police and fire merchandise that we will not sell to the general public. So that showroom would be completely separate and not accessible to the general public. I guess we technically fall under manufacturing. I had never considered that before. So I'm kind of at your mercy on this one. Mr. Drushel's a hard act to follow, and I don't have nearly the presentation ready for you that he did. So I guess I will take questions.
Will your showrooms be open to the public? We have regular retail hours?
Yes, we will. Yep, we will be open during regular business hours, Monday through Friday, and we will also have weekend hours once we are up and running there.
You'll be leasing this building?
Yes, leasing from Rose Properties.
Do you know the time period of your lease?
5 years. Our actual intention is that if we were able to move into this property and do what we would like to do there, that we would actually like to buy the property from Rose and stay there long term. Our initial retail space was on the corner of Bell and Liberty. It was 1,500 square feet. We quickly outgrew that. We moved onto North Street into a 3,000 square foot space and outgrew that in 3 years. This space is 10,000 square feet, so we foresee ourselves here for a while, at least the 5 years. And like I said, we would like to purchase the building eventually and stay there permanently.
How many employees would be working there in the manufacturing part of the shop?
So we have one person that is a press operator. We have one person that is in charge of embroidery, and we have 5 total people that work for us.
Thank you.
Do you have much in the way of truck traffic, deliveries in and out?
We just have a daily UPS and FedEx drop off. And they usually deliver to the where it said the embroidery showroom, which is the old theater entrance. That's where we have our deliveries set up.
So wasn't there someone in the, let's see, it'd be the southwest corner. Wasn't there somebody that did shirts at some time, printing on shirts?
Yes, expertise previously occupied that location.
Okay. And what are you doing that is, I mean, beyond the printing on shirts and that kind of thing? There's metal work. There's metal work.
No, the garment decorating is all we do that technically falls under the manufacturing.
And that's just embroidering type,
so
stitching.
Screen printing and embroidering. Yeah, screen printing and embroidering.
Can you explain some of the machinery or tools that you guys use for screen printing? Like, I'm pretty familiar with it. I don't know that everybody else is.
Sure. So we have a Vastex 10-color manual press, which is manual operated. And we have a Vastex conveyor dryer that you put the shirts on, it goes through and cures the ink. And we most recently purchased an Anatol electric press that's automatic. And the main reason that we purchased the Anatol equipment over any other versions is because it's all electric driven and it's very quiet. You could actually sit and have the conversation that we're having now in the room with the press running. In the embroidery, there we have 4 16 needle embroidery machines.
Is there any additional venting or ventilation, I should say, needing to be added to the screen print and embroidery area?
Yeah, we would have to vent our dryer, and that would be an issue that we would have to take up with the building department once once this issue is taken care of.
You're only using about half the space. Is there a plan for the other half of the space?
So the old theater, where it's marked as not used on the diagram here, still has the slanted floors with the theater seating. Rose Properties has requested that we do not alter that space while we are leasing it. At some point, if we were to purchase that, we would maybe expand into that and level the floor, as has been done in the in Theater 1.
So you've already leveled the floor in there, or was that already done?
That was leveled prior to us moving in.
What percentage of your business would you say is retail off the street versus the safety service departments?
So right now, very little, because we concentrate heavily on the police and fire. And that's one thing that this building would allow us to do, is kind of shift gears and do the direct to the public offerings. You know, people could come in and buy Worcester and Wayne County themed printed and embroidered items, which is our intention. We don't really want to get involved in school stuff much because that market is kind of cornered. But we would like to do, you know, like I said, things that kind of showcase the area out of our out of the main showroom.
So now, have you already entered into the lease on this building pending the?
We have.
Okay.
Yes, we have.
So-
You know, we were not aware that this was zoned this way, and the issue came up when we applied for a sign permit.
Okay.
What, wasn't this done at Pierce's
For
for a
years,
number of years?
yes.
Sorry? Yes, okay, thank you.
I think we also had a case further down Liberty Street for a T-shirt shop that involves silk or screen printing it, and we approved that several years ago as a part of a basic retail business, which the front of the shop was, and I find this somewhat similar.
That's kind of our plan with this building, is the screen printing and embroidery is going to support our retail business. What I mean, it already does. We just kind of want to add the additional, instead of just on the police and fire, we want to add the direct to consumer stuff as well.
So you said you purchased this piece of equipment that's very quiet. Is there, I mean, the building looks, you know, being brick and everything else, I would say it looks pretty soundproof, but is there anything that you might hear from the outside?
I don't believe so. I do have a video. It's on my phone. I don't know how I would upload it to this meeting, but it's a video of us looking at this piece of equipment while it's running. And as I said, we're having a conversation just like we're having now, and nobody's raising their voices or anything to talk over the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So other equipment of that style is usually air driven. So you have like compressors and things like that running. This is nothing like that. It's all electric and servo driven. So it's very quiet. And being in the fact that we would be in the theater that is soundproof, it would, I don't think any
mitigate that
noise
problem.
would escape from that room. Yes.
Well, and the knitting machines or sewing machines, whatever you call them, are they typical of what? Are they loud? Are they?
They're maybe a little louder than the press, but you can still have a conversation over them while they're running. Like I said, we have 4 of them, and we'll be standing right next to them talking, or I can talk on my phone standing next to them while they're running.
Have you by chance spoken to any of the surrounding businesses or organizations that support downtown businesses?
So I did speak to Mr. Mariola from City Square. He is actually not in favor of us being there. He said that he would like to see the area be used as an entertainment venue or return to use as a cinema. And I saw that the Main Street Worcester had submitted a letter to this application stating that they were not in favor of that use of this building.
Do you have any comments or rebuttals around that?
I guess my main rebuttal to that is, this building's been sitting empty for 2 years. It's bigger than any other business downtown, with maybe the exception of the Rubbermaid store. I don't think that any type of business is going to move into there and occupy 10,000 square feet of space. I don't think it's going to return to use as a theater. There was an application at the end of, I believe it was October or September of last year, that a theater was looking to move in there, but nothing has happened in all of 2020. So, I mean, theaters all across the country are going out of business, and I just don't see a theater returning to this space. Not that we were trying to hide anything from anybody. We just didn't know when this issue came up that it wasn't zoned for this. But had we moved in here and done the screen printing and embroidery and had the retail store up front, nobody would even know what was going on in that theater. It's just that type of business. It's low impact.
So I show essentially from this drawing, you have a couple emergency exits. The only really enter regress area is that corner, southwest corner.
Yes, yes, sir. The entrance there on the corner of South and Market would be the public entrance, and that would go into the main showroom.
But do you have any? There are no entrances towards the steakhouse or any other direction?
No, sir. No.
And what about the old entrance to the movie theaters? Weren't they kind of centered? Is that still
Yes.
there?
So those doors are there. We do not intend to use them as entrances and exits. We are going to use that space of the old ticket lobby to showcase our embroidery machines when people come in to look to purchase them. But they would come in through the main entrance and then be taken back to that area.
So these embroidery machines that you're selling, they're not made by you. You just represent the manufacturer?
Yes.
Any further questions from members of the board? All right, let's go ahead and open this up, Andrew, to the public, start the public hearing, and invite comment from YouTube.
I've opened the public hearing. I don't have any comments yet. Just noting anyone from the public that submitted a email or letter regarding his application has been forwarded to the board for their consideration.
Yeah, and for the record, there were 3 of those items that were forwarded to us.
It doesn't look like we're getting any additional comments outside of what was submitted prior.
All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, with that, we will close the public hearing and ask if there are any further questions from the board or comments from the applicant.
I have no further comments.
Okay. Just for the record, to clarify the earlier discussion and the receipt of the 3 letters, one was from Main Street, so you addressed that in your comments. The other was from the former director of Main Street, and the third one was from Cameron Manise, who represents the group that was contemplating an entertainment project in that venue. So just so that they all recognize they've been acknowledged. Any members of the board have a motion in any direction?
I move to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Mark to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is that Greg?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Greg. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 20-30. We'll change up the order here a little bit. Greg?
I'm going to vote yes for this. When I first saw the application, I thought it was great to see that building being put to some use, both for the retail purposes of it. And I saw the manufacturing part as a very small aspect that I didn't think would create a negative trend downtown. Until I saw the letters from the communities downtown who oppose it. While I appreciate their thoughts, and I agree it'd be great if it was a community theater. I mean, they've had years to make that happen. It hasn't happened. I don't know that it is viable, and I don't know that it's fair to hold up this application because of their desires. So based on that, I'm voting yes.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm going to vote yes, primarily for the reason that we already heard, Greg, that it needs to have something in this space and that it is retail with a small amount of I don't even consider it manufacturing per se, the screen printing and embroidery, which is just in the back room. It used to be, tailor shops in the olden days where they made the suits in the back room. I was just noting that the old theater with the slant floor is not going to be leased at this time. And that may, you know, if this doesn't continue beyond the 5 years, there's still a possibility of some sort of entertainment use here. But I agree with Greg that it would be nice, but theaters are closing everywhere.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Ben,
I will vote yes as well. I like that you are adding the retail shop to the portion of the front of the building where the building will be accessed. I think that kind of helps blend it into downtown. With my knowledge of screen printing and embroidery, I also know that the machines are not that loud and will not probably be even heard in the building unless everything's going. So that's the reasons why I'll vote yes.
okay, thank you, Ben. Mark,
I'm going to vote yes for the reasons stated by my colleagues. And also, you know, I think that letter I is granting the variance would confer special privilege. In fact, I think it would be the opposite if this were denied, as the board has previously approved variances that are very similar to this.
okay, thank you, Mark. Brad,
Yes. For me, a couple of letters on our checklist for a use variance. We'll start with letter E. And while I do believe the applicant maybe presented some things to demonstrate that it's possible it could never be used or would never be used as a theater again, I don't believe that sufficient evidence was presented to demonstrate that the building could not be used for any permitted use. I know that it's sat empty for a while, but that's just my interpretation of my feelings. And then letter G, knowing too that the code was just reviewed not that long ago, I just feel that allowing this use within the or would not be in the spirit and intent of the code. So for those reasons, I'm going to vote no on this.
okay, thank you, Brad. Doug,
I see this as being on the edge of the area. There was already a screening business in the front part, and their entry and egress are, to me, very minimal. And so I can't imagine, and I can't believe this is going to be something that people are coming and going constantly. That, and I'm glad to see a business downtown, because I think we're going to lose some other businesses. And places like Pierce's and Freelanders, you know, they sold clothing out front, but they certainly did alterations with sewing machines and everything else in the back all these years. And Pierce's did this on the, well, I'm not sure it was that on the 3rd floor all the years, but later it was. But still, I think that this is, you know, part of our downtown. And as far as the noise, with that kind of building, I can't see there be much detection from the outside from what is stated as the noise. So I'm voting yes.
okay, thank you, Doug. For my part, I approach this with very mixed feelings because of in a prior life, I did serve on the Main Street Board and have had a fair amount of involvement in downtown activities and development plans and so forth. I mean, an entertainment district, as Mike Mariola pointed out, has been a discussion item downtown for probably at least the last 10, if not the last 20 years. And there have been various attempts to try to put something together, and it hasn't come to fruition. I really do understand, probably more than many, the effort that Main Street puts into trying to develop a coherent downtown. And I wasn't aware that there was another theater plan until this afternoon. And as the applicant says, particularly in this year of COVID, it's a bad year for movie theaters. It's not clear how that business is even going to survive going forward. But what we do have right now is an empty building that's being put back to productive use. And the Main Street letter specifically objected to extending a precedent of another screen printing operation that was at the periphery of downtown on the northeast corner. This is on the periphery as well. If you look at what's on the street along South Street, across the street, you got the post office and multifamily housing. So really, I think having addressed the questions of we're not going to have excessive delivery traffic, we're not going to have excessive noise, it wants to build a retail business. Those all argue for putting a productive enterprise back into the downtown. And as Doug noted, I think this environment may put some pressure on downtown, and we'd rather have more businesses than less. So after a lot of back and forth and weighing of strong issues on both sides, I'm going to have to also vote yes on this. So with sufficient yes votes, your application is approved.
Thank you.
Is there any further business to come before the board? All right, the next item on our agenda is the meeting schedule and chair, vice chair selection for 2021. Andrew, do you have a proposal for our schedule?
The schedule that I believe should have been in your packet was the same format that we've had this year. The first Thursday meetings at 7:30, and it would include all the boards and commissions meeting on the same night, which I think has worked out well. We haven't really had any problems with meetings running into each other just yet. So it's the same format in that respect.
Okay, I must have missed that, which is why I asked the question. So is everybody okay with that meeting schedule? We've been on it for almost all of it. We just started at the beginning of this year, Andrew.
Correct, yeah, and it's the first Thursday for any meeting. We don't run in any holidays or anything like that.
Okay, which helps. Okay. So is there a motion to adopt the meeting schedule?
Move we adopt this presented.
Thank you, Doug. Is there a second? Thank you, Mark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, Andrew, you have the schedule. Chair and vice chair. This is always the awkward moment of every year when we have to have this conversation.
Stuart, if I could just real quickly, I spoke with Andrew earlier this week, so my term is expiring at the end of this month. I will not be re-upping for another term on the board.
Oh, Brad, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it the last 4 years, but I've got a lot of other things picking up next year and just trying to find some balance.
Well, that's entirely understandable. You've been a board.
So I just wanted to thank everybody, but also make it known before anybody wanted to
I think I'm frozen.
nominate me for a vice again. So.
Well, I appreciate your service. You did a nice
You're
job.
vice chair this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
I would like to suggest we keep Stuart on as the chair. I think he's done an exceptional job. And we've had a number of different types of presentations, and I think he's especially doing it like we are now on the Zoom or whatever we're on. And I just really believe he's done a wonderful job, and I would like to put his name forward as being for chair.
I would second that.
Boy.
Sorry about that, everybody. I seem to be the culprit.
You've been nominated for chair again.
Oh, I have. That's what happens when the wireless goes down. Thanks, guys.
Very quick.
Going up for a committee meeting. Well, since I was blinking in and out, Brad, I want to say, as I think others did, I really appreciate your service on this board. You've been a very thoughtful member, have really dug into and learned the ins and outs of the process. And we will miss you on this board. So thank you for your 4 years.
Thank you, Stuart.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, so I've been nominated for chair. How about vice chair? Who wants to be next in the hot seat?
Well, I would like to nominate Mark Reynolds as vice chair because Brad is going off.
This is kind of awkward over like this, but I would also, I'm going to suggest Mark, but is Greg interested in it?
Never. I've been
Never.
avoiding that for years.
All
I
right,
like it this way.
I'll second Mark. That's what?
I think Mark will do a fine job.
Mark, are you willing to step in if I'm not able to preside?
Absolutely.
All right, then I think we have a slate. So,
I move that we accept the
all-
slate as presented.
all
Oh,
right,
did we
thank
already
you,
do
Doug.
that?
I'll second it for the last time.
There you go.
All right, thank you, Brad. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, the slate passes. There you
Do
go,
we-
Andrew.
Congratulations.
Andrew, does Brad, who does Brad, what ward does Brad represent? That we
He's
need
Ward
a
one.
Ward 1, so we need a Ward 1 person.
Correct, yes.
It's been nice having 7 people. It's,
Yes, it really has. It helps a lot. And obviously, I assume the mayor is aware and he's working on that.
Yeah. So we had a number of reappointments, and so that's getting shuffled around with all the boards, commissions.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, just so that everybody knows, my term was up this month as well, and I allowed myself to be reappointed. So
Same here.
my mistake, maybe.
it's not a life
All
appointment.
right.
It's not the Supreme Court, is it? It's not like,
No, that is true. No, we do have a 12-year term limit. So I think I'm up to 6. So
okay.
I'm halfway through my eligibility, and I would assume somebody like you, Ken's probably been on a long time. Are you subject to the 12-year?
I'm sure. Or, I turned 80 this year. I think that should be, if the Cardinals cannot vote for the Pope after 80, that maybe that would.
I would never have guessed that you were that old.
Well, 1940, good old pre-war.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, on that cheerful note, now I see we have nothing left on our agenda. Andrew, anything else?
I don't have anything else.
All right, then do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
Make
moved.
that motion.
Second.
All right, I'm not sure who spoke when. We'll say we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. At your peril. Okay, we are adjourned.
Good night.
Thank you all, and
Thank you.
thank you, Brad.
Yes.
We will miss you.
Again, Brad.
Yep. See you in February, maybe.